to join me in welcoming our very own Brian Woolf.
You see, this was a televised address to the nation. My fellow Americans, as President and Commander-in-Chief, it is my duty to the American people to report that renewed hostile actions against United States ships on the high seas in the Gulf of Tonkin have today required me to order the military forces of the United States to take action in reply. The initial attack on the destroyer Maddox on August the 2nd, 2 days ago, was repeated today by a number of hostile vessels attacking 2 destroyers with torpedoes. We believe that at least 2 of the attacking boats were sunk. There were no U.S. losses. The performance of our commanders and crews in this engagement is in the highest tradition of United States Navy history. But repeated acts of violence against the armed forces of these United States must be met not only with alert defense, but with positive reply. That reply is being given as I speak to you tonight. Air action is now in execution against gunboats and certain supporting facilities in North Vietnam which have been used in these hostile operations. In the larger sense, this new act of aggression aimed directly at our own forces again brings home to all of us in the United States the importance of the struggle for peace and security in Southeast Asia. Aggression by terror against the peaceful villages of South Vietnam has now been joined by open aggression on the high seas against the United States of America. The determination of all Americans to carry out our full commitment to the people and to the government of South Vietnam will be redoubled by this outrage. Yet our response for the present will be limited and fitting. We Americans know the risks of spreading conflict. We still seek no wider war. I have instructed Ambassador Stevenson to raise this matter immediately and urgently before the Security Council. Finally, I have today met with the leaders of both parties in the Congress of the United States, and I have informed them that I shall immediately request the Congress to pass a resolution making it clear that our government is united in its determination to take all necessary measures in support of freedom and in defense of peace in Southeast Asia. It is a solemn responsibility to have to order even limited military action by forces whose overall strength is as vast and as awesome as these in these United States. But it is my considered conviction that firmness in the right is indispensable today for peace. That firmness will always be measured. Its mission is peace. Fellow Toastmasters, that is called the Gulf of Tonkin Address by President Johnson, August 4, 1964. The amazing thing about this is that we were not attacked the second time on August the 4th. It was basically a put-up job. And this led us heavily into the Vietnam War. What had happened is that on the 2nd of August, some CIA-sponsored South Vietnamese troops had attacked the North Vietnamese islands, and they sort of responded. We were hit by one bullet in the first case. And then on the second night, on August the 4th, our commander of the ship went up the channel to find, told we were attacked again. We weren't attacked, it was dark night and we weren't attacked. Sent the message back saying it was false. McNamara, of course, denied it at the time, but in later subsequent conversations, recording conversations, he said, yes, he had already told the president that day. So President Johnson knew, giving the speech, that we weren't attacked the second time. We did it because that month was the Democratic Convention. And President Johnson's lust for being president again on his own basis was so strong that he had to show that he was strong. Because the Republican Party, Barry Goldwater was his leader, was saying he's weak. And thus, what we see here are the powers that force men in leadership to make bad decisions. Because Johnson, in my mind, having just read this book, only 600 pages long of text, one of the most amazing books I've ever read. I mean, Lyndon Johnson, is the greatest president in American history, alongside Lincoln, to look after the interests of non-white people in this country. He is really the reason why we have, free vote and equality. He brought it to the people after the assassination of President Kennedy. We owe him a great debt. He was a very powerful, a very skillful president, and you read in this book. And we read about the troubles he had as vice president because the Kennedys basically ignored him. But his strength of an ability of exercising power was so strong that he got through several major pieces of legislation after Kennedy died, and then on his own right went and won the election in 1964. But his greatest weakness, his greatest flaw, was getting involved in Vietnam. Kennedy already started, but to show that he was strong, he still had this sort of Texas mentality that you can't show weakness. And he had to, as president, go forth and show that we could do everything. He had already sent, in early 1964, the same year, McNamara and Lodge to Vietnam to assess the situation. They came back and said, we're in bad shape. And we tried to bury the whole situation. So what he needed was an excuse to stand up. We already had the CIA in there. We actually started the war in 1955, just for your information. This is now 1964. The war went on another 11 years after that. It really escalated from this point. Again, the lesson is hubris. Thinking you can do it all. Thinking that you can lie to the American people. It's really no different to George Bush when he lied to us 10 years ago. Got us into Iraq. My fear is what will happen in the coming year regarding Iran. You should be aware that on July the 1st, the embargo takes place on Iran, where the United States and Europe have implemented an embargo on Iran. Can't send all sorts of supplies. Japan is still buying oil from Iran, and China is still buying oil from Iran, and China has told Iran that we will support you regardless. Russia's just sent in helicopter ships into Iraq, and we're saying, oh, you can notice the headlines in the last couple of days on that. And so it's all been set up. The question is, who will tell the truth in the coming year, in the coming months? I only hope that there's no hubris and mistakes made in Washington on this, because there's too much at stake. This mistake of this man, this great man in my mind, this huge mistake, cost us 50,000 dead, hundreds of thousands wounded, because of lying. And my question is, and my care is, what's going to happen in the coming 12 months? It's not just a matter of Iran, but we have the whole fiscal situation in the world. Who is going to be out there telling the truth? And when they sit in front of that TV and talk to us, are they telling the truth? We won't really know. I'm just setting it up as a warning. But that book and that speech gave me a reminder of the warnings we need in life. Now,